and welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFL round review. And ladies and gentlemen, this is one of my favorite episodes because not only am I sitting down with another fellow footy head, I'm also sitting down with another fellow Yank that is a footy head. The man, the myth, the legend that is the Yank on the footy, Craig Wessels. Craig, it is great to see you, sir.
Thank you, man. This is awesome. It's been since the school year got out and I'm a teacher, it's been crazy because I've been working 4 or 5 days a week and um, also planning on my first trip to Australia, which is happening on July 12th. And as I told you off air, I said I just bought my tickets for the two games that I'm going to in Geelong. Uh, Single tickets. I have no clue who I'm sitting with. I'm going to be making lots of new friends at this point in time. Hopefully, they're not Saint supporters, but if they are, or the Bomber supporters, but if they are, guess what? That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I hopefully they won't have a problem with me either.
I think it's going to be fun. I cannot wait to hear about these stories. I cannot wait. I think it's going to be fantastic. I will be glued to your social media to see how that goes,
I'm
sir.
gonna
So
I'm gonna have content coming out of my ears. Yeah,
awesome, awesome.
yeah.
Absolutely love it. Well, as per usual, I have to have you to sit down and talk some footy. And we were treated, round 15 has come, it has gone. And, sir, I know this was only 7 games, but man, were we treated to some fantastic footy. Some
hmm
results maybe didn't go the way we were kind of thinking, especially for my co host here, but I still think it was an incredibly good game. Cannot wait to talk it through. So, Craig, tell me your thoughts on this incredible round 15.
Well, we had some really good games. We had a couple of clunkers. And I first and foremost, I am a Cat supporter. I did tip Fremantle to win this one. I just thought they rested players I wasn't expecting to see them resting. I thought maybe Cameron Dangerfield might rest in this one. I didn't know Bailey Smith was going to be sitting this one out. I knew Tom Stewart wasn't going to be there. Um, but to me, this was that game was an example of them kind of maybe keeping their powder dry. And that's not to take anything
Mhm,
away from Fremantle, because I am fairly confident, if I remember correctly, I did tip Fremantle to be in the grand final this year.
mhm.
Okay. Of course, I also tipped Melbourne to be 17th on the ladder. Uh,
You win
but
some, you lose some, right?
yeah, I mean, there was some competitive games, and I watched four of them. I got to see four of them live. I've read up on the other three, and I'll watch the Thursday and Friday morning games for sure. And usually when I get home on from work on Friday night, I watch the Adelaide and Melbourne game, which Adelaide, if they're healthy, I think that's going to be a scary side. Hopefully they've gotten over the bugaboo of going out in straight sets last year.
Mhm.
But I, I'm I while I'm not thrilled about necessarily the idea of bringing the wild card in, and there's something else that just popped up in the news today that I want to bring up with you as well. That I don't know if you're going to talk about this whole mid-season tournament thing, which I'm just thinking to myself, I am so I I want to apologize to those of you who have been longtime footy fans that are thinking, what in the hell are we doing looking at the shit
Uh,
that the Americans do time and time again? As an American, I want to apologize for that. Just play the fixture as it's drawn up.
it's
Leave it
funny.
at that.
I was not gonna address it because there's. I know I watched 360 from this
hmm
morning, and it was very interesting hearing Jared Waitley walk Gary Lyon through the four and how it was going to change, and
Yeah.
you could kind of tell, like, when he originally said one and then he kind of went through what potentially you could kind of see him go, what?
Yeah,
You could just
exactly.
see the squirrels running through. So I wasn't planning on addressing it because I still think there's still far too much to unpack on it.
Right, right.
I will say my piece really quickly. Let's not like, and I'm one of those. There are a few things that I would like to have a few, as they say, Americanized things into it, but that is not one of them. I,
hmm
I think these players already play too much. And maybe again, it's a little bit of my love for the W, that I think we need to play less games, and I think we need to have the W playing more games. But that is me personally. Again, I know it's a utopian idea that it will
Yeah.
never come true, but the I don't mind one of the ideas. The other three, I think we're jumping off a bridge that I just think is a little too far. So I
Hmm.
will go that far on that. Again, I'll let the presidents and the CEOs talk it through. But again, it is one of those where the broadcasters are going to have a large push for some of these things that I
Yeah.
think that I feel bad for the players because I think that they're now going to be put into a situation where they're put into something that I just don't know if it's really necessary, especially with this sport. We're not talking
Hmm.
basketball where you can do the middle of the in-season tournament by using games that are actually in the fixture. They're not doing that. They're doing
Hmm.
something completely different, which I just
Right, right.
I think it's just it's a bridge too far personally for
Yeah.
me.
And
Um,
if they're talking about reducing the number of games being played, I can't I can't see the league doing that because it's kind of a case of, cutting off their nose to spite their face. I think that's
yep,
the right colloquialism,
yep.
because they're bringing new clubs into the competition to get more games, to get more revenue. They've added this wild card to get more revenue, and now
Mhm.
we're going to cut away games from the regular fixture. I just don't see that how that's going to work. So and your utopian idea of having more AFLW games, I think that's terrific. Um, I think that I do you think that's eventually going to happen regardless?
I think they will. It's just going to overlap. I think the seasons eventually are going to overlap a lot more than they already do. Like
Hmm.
right now it's two rounds. Like this year it'll be round 1 and 2 for the W will be rounds 23 and 24 for the
Hmm.
women, which I don't mind. Then you get round 3 during the bye week, which now is the wild card week, so there actually is going to be men's footy along with round 3, and then
Right.
most of the finals take up rounds 4 through 8. So a majority of the women's footy is still kind of overlapped by the men's.
Yeah.
Again, my utopian idea, I've thrown it out a couple of times, is you reduce it down, you play everybody once for the men,
Hmm.
and then you have one double, and that's it. That's your season. And then you go to finals. And then even if the men's finals is earlier, then the women's do the same thing. You play everybody once, you play your rival twice, game over, that's it.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
done. Again, I know it'll never happen, but that would be the ultimate way to get the most footy, and you would reduce the men's games, you would increase the women's games, and you wouldn't actually affect the schedule as much. But again, and that's unfortunately. So we've went on a random tangent there, but I don't mind it. I absolutely love this is the reason why I love sitting down with Craig because he and I know we both go through it so much. It's fantastic to talk with. Let's hop right into it. Round 15. Let's pull the band-aid off. Let's get rid of it. I know you tipped Fremantle, but
Hmm.
you're a Cats man that you are. They
Yeah.
fall to the Dockers 99-90. But I will say this, no Bailey Smith, no Tom Stewart, and the Cats did a lot of what you said. They kept their powder dry. I think they
Yeah.
left a few things in it. Dockers get it done. These Dockers are looking fantastic. And right now, the trip out to Perth is a daunting test trying to beat this fantastic Dockers side out
Yep.
west.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. And you know, I recorded earlier today with Mick Aussie doing our tips for round 16, and one of the things we did was we challenged where you could create your club with like a forwards, mids, and defenders, and I went with separate clubs. Well, Mick actually chose Fremantle. He tried to choose Fremantle for all three of his, and I said, just go ahead and turn in your Crows membership now. But I I and I really freaked him out because I took the Crows forwards and Fremantle's
Defense.
defense.
Yep.
Yeah, and Sydney's midfield. Um, but it is just such a an all around good side. And as I'm watching the games, I'm not always picking up all of the nuances, but I know that there weren't the tags that O'Sheen Mullen and O'Connor have put on players in the past and such. They really didn't do that this
Nope.
round.
Yep.
So it's you know I think they really wanted to just get into the bye week healthy, which is kind of why I thought they were going to rest Cameron and Dangerfield to because Jeremy Cameron has not looked like Jeremy Cameron for most of this year. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's kicked 35 goals or so, but it is not your typical Jeremy Cameron year. And thankfully, Ollie Henry and Jack Martin have kind of stepped in, um, because there's been some hard um, demotions, with Brad Close getting sent down from time to time, and
Hmm.
Myers, on what, three-quarters of an ACL right now, that could go at any moment, but and maybe Stengel will be back sooner rather than later, which would be a nice addition as well. But yeah, I'm Fremantle is a phenomenal club, and I've told I've told people, I said, if you're coming in to be a fan of a club, I said, you could do well truthfully choosing either of the clubs in WA. If you want one that's
Yep.
established, that's playing well, or if you want one that is ascending, I think finally in the Eagles, I
Hmm.
think the ascendancy is starting to show up. And again, it's just can they keep those players on their list? Um, but yeah, the Cats were accurate. They just had a lot fewer scoring opportunities.
Hmm.
Uh, it was not their strongest performance by any stretch of the imagination. And we got chewed up by Luke Jackson,
Hmm.
and that's not Mitch Edwards, I think, is going to be an okay ruckman as he gets more games in under his belt. I think he'd actually had hand surgery during the week.
Yep.
He'd had something on his hand done.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so this is a I think these two teams could play each other again in the finals. Um, and I think, yeah, it's definitely going to be, you know, at Optus or at the MCG at the end of the season if one
Hmm.
of them does what I hope they do. But yeah, I don't know.
This is a preliminary final grand final preview. Like legitimately, this was a fantastic game. I'm 100% with you. Like Fremantle, they want for nothing because right now they've got one of the scariest forward lines because not only do they have big tall forwards that can mark the footy and lead very well, they've got great small forwards that are crumbing fantastically.
Yeah.
Murphy Reed is showing why he may be the absolute steal of his draft year. You have Luke Jackson, who is absolutely, in my opinion, and I don't think I'm jumping off too high a limb here, is looking like the ruck for the All Australian, and I just don't see an argument. I love Max Gawn. I think Max Gawn is doing fantastic, but how
And
can you
same with
deny
Brody
what Luke
Grundy.
Jackson how can you deny what Luke Jackson is doing? And I
Yeah.
get and I agree. Like there's a legitimate argument to have three rucks this year because you could put Luke Jackson as a wing or a midfielder
Hmm.
and have Gawn and Grundy there as well. So it has been incredibly fun to watch Luke Jackson play. Fremantle are so stingy defensively. You've got
Yeah.
Pierce, you've
Yeah.
got Cox, you've got Ryan, you've got Clark. They're just as good offensively as they are defensively. They want for nothing. I mean, Sean Darcy can't even get a game. And I'm going
Right.
to say this, as long as Mason Cox is healthy, I think Darcy's going to stay in the waffle because
Hmm.
I just don't see where he's going to be able to step up and improve the team even when he gets healthy because of what Mason Cox is doing as that secondary ruck slash full forward
Hmm.
to kind of give Luke Jackson just the tiniest bit of spell in and out. I also sit here and I go like the Cats they didn't do themselves any disservice as we said. Bailey Smith wasn't there, Tom Stewart wasn't there, Jeremy Cameron. I still think there's still something wrong. I
Yeah.
still think that there's some nerve damage in that with that broken arm that is just not going away. So the buy round is coming. Like he needs an extra bit of rest if they can afford it. We'll really have to see. But the Cats didn't do themselves any disservice in that. I agree that Coach
And
Scott is too clever a coach.
yeah.
He's not going to show his hands now. He wants it in the finals where it's that much more important.
Right.
I think
Right.
he's
And
going to sacrifice 4 points now for a grand final potentially later on in the year if he needs to.
yeah,
So,
and Fremantle just came out like a buzzsaw in the third quarter. I mean,
yep,
they went 7 goals, no behinds
yep,
in the third quarter there, and that's something right there where you know you don't necessarily get to recover from that. And they
mhm,
got close and they were competitive up until the end. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Fremantle kicked a goal late
yep,
to make it, to get it out of reach. But it was a competitive game, and I'm not as frustrated about the loss to Fremantle as I am the losses to Port Adelaide and to Carlton.
mhm,
Okay. Those piss me off more than losing to Fremantle. And again, Chris Scott today forgot more about football than I'll ever know about it. So,
Mhm.
um, I'm not, I'm, it's in Chris Scott we trust. It's
Yep.
kind of what we have to, we kind of have to, yeah, we have to put that on our coins.
It's nothing, it's nothing to snuff at. Like I said, I always know the Cats are going to be there. They're just they're too well coached. They're too well drilled to not.
Hmm.
So again, I understand it's 4 points lost, but I think it's 4 points lost in the long run. It's going to be a gain for them
Yeah.
in the future. Let's hop up to People First Stadium, where the Wayward Suns are still having problems as the Hawks go into the Gold Coast and get a 113-97 point win. Boy, is it great to see Will Day back. Man, how fantastic does he look? But I'm gonna say this here, Craig. This Suns team is starting to piss me off because we kept hearing in round two and round three, this is a potential premiership team. This is one of the best teams in the league.
Well,
They want for nothing. They've got Dimma, they've got the great coach. Why, pardon my French, ladies and gentlemen, why are they shitting the bed so fantastically right now?
are you sure it was a 113-97 win and not a 113-97 whinge?
Loss, yeah.
Whinge with a G. It was a whinge for the Suns. There's they the Suns are doing they're doing a really, really good imitation of 2020's version of LeBron James. I mean, they're basic. It's like they're not necessarily flopping around on the ground. I mean, I've lost. I mean, I don't watch the NBA, but I see the flops. I don't. I've stopped watching it, but that's not the guy that I've watched for well over a decade. They're the guy that's just oh, you looked at me wrong. Oh, I'm going to fall down, and it
Mhm.
and it's coming from the top down. It's not the players are seeing Dimma pissing and moaning about things, and they're thinking, well, if the coach is doing that,
Nope.
I'm going to do that sort of thing. So I and again, I am not advocating for a coaching change here, but I wonder with this club, with this talent that they have right now, what if Stuart Dew was still the coach?
Mhm.
Would this club be whinging, or would they just be? Mick is attributing it to marital issues, because that maybe there's a new trainer working for the Suns or something. He's
There you
kind of alluded to
go.
that sort of thing. I don't know, but it's just I think it's a top down kind of thing, and they didn't play poorly.
Nope.
They had as many scoring within one. 27 to 27 scoring shots to 28, and this is not a bad club, but you know, it, I've not been terribly impressed. The midfield has got all the talent in the world, but you can only play with one football.
Mhm.
You can only have one football on the ground, and there's an awful lot of people who have been collectors of the football for many, many years, and three of them have worked together pretty well. And you brought the fourth one in now in Petrarca, and I'm not certainly not taking anything away from Petrarca, because you look at it, Anderson had 43 disposals, Petrarca 31, um, Miller had 24, Rowell had 22, so they're all getting their hands on the ball, but I just think defensively they're not great right now either,
Mm-mm.
and here's my other thing, and again, this is Hawthorne, you did this without Jack Gunston,
Mhm.
okay. You did this with your captain having some mental lapses of his own during the course of this game. I think that maybe he and Toby Green could become pen pals and write letters back and forth to one another to see how best not to completely fuck over my own squad during the course of a game. Uh, but, although I
Uh,
think Green has improved a little bit this year as far as that
Tiny
goes.
bit,
But
yeah, tiny
yeah,
bit.
but I really wonder, is the stuff that's going on, the chirping that's going on about Ben King and Jed Walter and where they may be in 2027, is that becoming a distraction for this club?
Mhm.
I don't know the answer to that because we're not on the inside. We're not on the inside at all. But you don't know. You
Well,
don't know.
according to Dimon now, Bailey Humphrey is completely off of his game because he's part of these discussions too. Like he
Yeah.
came out and
Yeah.
said like this isn't good for his. I'm like, all due respect, these are professional athletes.
Hmm.
If they don't want to be talked about in that particular way, sign a new contract.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
that's on the club. Like, and all I want to go off this. Like, I completely agree with you, but I think the person right now that I feel the sorriest for is Bailey Humphrey because I think what Petrarca is doing was what Bailey Humphrey was already doing,
Hmm.
and now you bring in Bailey Humphrey 10 years from now in Petrarca, and it's like
Yeah.
wonder why Bailey Humphreys all of his metrics are down. He's inconsistent this year. He's not as effective a footballer as he has been the previous 2 seasons. Like I hate saying it, but as much as the Gold Coast getting Petrarca is great, it's actually in my opinion, I think it's going to cost them Bailey Humphrey. I think Bailey Humphrey is out. I think Bailey Humphrey is going to bugger off. The fact that Jed Walter and King both haven't signed isn't filling me with confidence that either of
Hmm.
them are going to resign. And it's like, and you hear, and to go off the whinging thing is you heard all this time about the whinging of the Victorian clubs because the Gold Coast got all this talent.
Hmm.
Here is the point where I say that your whinging makes you look really, really dumb because look what's happening. Gold Coast's biggest issue right now is they have no role players. They have superstar talent, and that's about it. They don't have role players. They don't have mongrel guys that are willing to just do what's best for the club. You've got superstar top 10, top 20 level players,
Great point.
and they don't have any mongrel. Like they don't have a swallow. They don't have these guys that go, "Yes, coach, I'm going to do what you asked me to do."
A,
They
to, a, to,
don't.
a Tom Atkins,
Yep.
for example, that's just
Yep.
going to stick their nose in there.
A Jamesy Rollbottom from
Yeah,
Sydney,
exactly.
a
Yeah.
Jamesy Rollbottom, a Tommy Liberatore
Hmm.
from the Western Bulldogs, the Sam Barry from the Adelaide Crows, like the guy that's just gonna be the mongrel. He's gonna do what he needs to do. Yes, coach, that's what I need to do. Gold Coast's biggest issue is right now is that because they wanted to keep all this superstar talent, they have let go of some of the glue players that they're going to need.
Right, right.
And the problem is they're still not going to be able to keep them all. Like
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like that's the thing that's the most frustrating is like when Dema said like 80% of my premiership team is here. Pardon my French, bullshit.
exactly. Yeah,
Bullshit.
it's kind of like it's in many ways to use a baseball analogy, which I don't watch
Mhm.
baseball anymore, but to use a baseball analogy, it's almost like a team has outfitted themselves with nine cleanup hitters in their lineup,
Yep.
and they don't have
Yep.
a leadoff hitter that can bunt and get on. Well, they don't. Nobody bunts anymore anyway because I fucking hate what they've done to baseball. Um, you don't have a number two hitter that can hit the ball the opposite way to get the runner into scoring position. You don't have
You don't have the Tony Gwynn 300,
yeah,
350,
yes,
375 hitter that just gets on base and
yes,
puts up
we
on base percentage in the 900s
yeah,
because he walks or he gets on base by base hits.
and he
Yeah,
learns
they
how to hit
don't
the ball
have
the other
that.
way. Yes,
Yeah,
and
no, 100%. They don't have that
everybody's trying
mongrel
to
guy. Yep,
yeah,
because your defenders are either superstar caliber half
yeah,
forwards that all are offense but no defense. Your midfielders always want the footy in hand, so when the footy isn't in hand, they're like headless chooks. Their forwards are all fighting over who gets the footy to kick the goals. That's the issue you run into, and the guys that you bring in, like Petrarca is fantastic. Again, I'm not taking away from Petrarca's talent. What I'm
hmm,
taking away is Petrarca's ability to be a two-way footy player because he's offense, and that's really about it.
yeah,
And
and
again,
I
it happens, but when you have Anderson, who's pretty much the same, Raul, who's pretty solid defensively, but
yeah,
unfortunately has really kind of turned into that offensive-minded type of ball collector, a lot like what Tommy Mitchell was. He's great to get the footy, but he doesn't make any impact after that. And then
yeah,
defensively, he's just not there.
yeah,
And
well,
then Tuke Miller has basically been shoved out. And what is he doing? He's been pushed out on the wing where he makes no impact on clearance at all. And
right,
when he
right,
does go into the center, it's still Petrarca and Rowell and Anderson that are getting the footy. And
yeah,
Miller's just got to be, oh, I got to kind of play defense,
yeah,
which
I'm
he's pretty good at. But I mean,
yeah,
he's not fantastic either. So it's like this Suns team does my head in
yeah,
because they are paper great. they're not on the field great, and that's the
Yeah.
frustrating part.
Well, and
And
that's
Dimma just again continues to suck it up that everything is against him, and I'm just like, dude, shut up.
yeah. And the interesting, and I know this is not the way to really make the comparisons, the analogies we need in terms of talking about the actual gameplay, but I'm looking at just like fantasy points right now.
Hmm.
The Suns had five players that scored more than 100 points
Hmm.
in fantasy this week. The Hawks had two.
Yep.
So you got a lot of collectors of the football. I mean, you had let me get it to reload here. You had three players with more than 31 disposals, and you had
Hmm.
seven other players with 20 disposals. What the hell did they do with them though?
Yep. What's
It's
their impact? Yep.
exactly. Yeah,
Yep.
a lot of ball collectors, like you said with Tom Mitchell. So, um,
And again, I'm not trying to disrespect Tommy Mitchell, but I can't tell you how many times when I was doing my team of the week, he'd get 43 disposals, but his total like meters gained would be under
yeah,
300. I'm like, that
yeah,
just shows you he's collecting a lot of footy, but making no impact. Like, so that's the frustrating part. So I want to get off the Suns as much as I don't mind kicking Dema because I think Dema is very arrogant when it comes to as a coach. I
yeah,
actually kind of do not mind
yeah.
at all. Um, yeah, so it's kind of crazy. So we'll do that. So one of the best things about sometimes with a podcast is the fun stories that you can have for reasons that you have to pause. So we paused that. So if there's a weird transition here, we'll just understand that we had a little bit of a situation that we needed to
I had to
stop
go
and
to the
pause.
bathroom, folks. I'm
I
old.
was trying to be nice, sir. I was trying to be nice. Come on.
I'm pragmatic.
I love it. So,
It was a
all
real
right.
pisser.
Yeah, literally. So let's go off that. A great transition. Let's hop to the Adelaide Oval where we see the Adelaide Crows get an impressive 17-point win over the Melbourne Demons, 79-62. And I have to say, I agree with you, sir. This Crows team, they're getting healthy.
Hmm.
They're starting to find the form that they had last year to be minor premiers. This is
Yeah,
a dangerous, dangerous
yeah,
Crows
yeah,
side that I like a lot.
yeah. And they've done some of these things with Tex Walker out of the lineup. And they just seem to play, to me, they play very good team football. This is a club that I think and that is just there aren't a lot of faults that this club has other than maybe some consistency issues that
Yep.
maybe they don't always follow through, um they've got two of the best beards in footy, which I'm surprised there hasn't been some sort of an advertising thing that's taken place with Malera and Thilthorpe there. I don't know, but Grizzly something or another would be or you know I don't know, but it's just this is a quality side, and if you're looking at a couple of small forwards, Rankin and Rochelle, who there are clubs that maybe have a better pair, but there aren't many.
Mm-mm.
And if Isaac Rankin keeps his head on straight, and doesn't find himself getting into any kind of hot water, because you could make a very strong argument that one of the reasons why they went out in straight sets last year was because of what happened with him being out.
Hmm.
So it is a this is a quality side, and we're looking at then also the Melbourne side, who I don't recall where you had them on the ladder, but I'm gonna guess you maybe had them a little higher than I did.
I don't like doing the whole ladder thing, but I had them bottom six,
Okay.
not bottom four, just because I think I kind of knew West Coast, Richmond, Essendon,
Yeah.
North Melbourne
Mm.
was kind of my bottom four at
Yeah.
this. I knew North Melbourne had a chance if they matched up well. I just wasn't really sure where Port Adelaide, St. Kilda, Carlton, all that kind of Collingwood would all kind of flop
Right.
out.
Right.
So, but are they the pleasant surprise of the competition this year? Absolutely. Like
I think so.
what Coach King has done is absolutely fantastic. No matter what, if they make finals, no matter if it's in the wild card positions, again, we'll discuss that a little bit later. you got to take it as a hat. Like for me, I think he's coach. I think he's coach of the year. I know that there's a new person. I think that's really making a huge argument for coach of the year if things keep going the way they're going here, and that's the next game that we'll talk about.
Well, and he's going to refuse to accept the
I
award.
know exactly. But Coach King right now, for me personally, he has to be coach of the year. I don't care what
I think so.
Fremantle, I don't care what Fremantle does. I don't care what Sydney's done. I really don't care. What Coach King has done at Melbourne is
Hmm.
nothing but fantastic, considering you trade Oliver, you trade Petrarca, you let May go. Viney
Yeah.
hasn't played this entire season, and you are in the finals right now
Yeah, you're in the
with the
top
team
six.
that you
Yeah. Yeah.
have. Like legitimately, I tip my cap to you, Coach King, because what
Yep.
you have done is a miracle for many people in the profession. So I don't really think this is a negative for the Melbourne Footy Club. It was fascinating to see Cozzy Pickett somewhat stifled. James Peatling, a kind of a team tag, I think really kind of shut Cozzy down, which is not something we've seen very often, that Cozzy Pickett get kind of blanked in this particular game. But as you said, Rochelle, fantastic. Rankin starting to figure it out. Phil Thorpe is now somewhat healthy.
Hmm.
Walker's back in. You're seeing Fogarty make an impact. You're seeing Keane come back and be absolutely fantastic. Mitch
Yeah.
Hinge still isn't even back for this team. Josh Worrell is hurt. This is a scary Adelaide Crow side because they're getting healthy at the
Yeah.
right time
Yeah.
of the season, and they're winning games like this that earlier in the year they couldn't win. So
Yeah.
now they're getting this huge win over a Melbourne side that a lot of people are starting to jump on. So now 100% with you. This is
No,
a scary Crow side if they
yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah. I think that King can, even though he lost, his club lost this game, um, and they kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter because
Yep.
they went
Yep.
into the fourth with the lead. Um, if they still manage to find their way into the top six at the end of this year, having lost their most experienced key forward in Brody Majacek,
Hmm.
I think that right there, as you said, despite what Longmuir has done with Fremantle, I think King has to seriously get some strong consideration to be coach of the year
100%.
without Majacek being there. Because I mean, he had a broken bone in his neck. My guess is we're not going to see him again in 2026,
Yep.
just
Nope.
purely
100%. Yep.
out of precautionary measures there. I mean, this has been a um God, I hate making baseball analogies here because I hate, but I'm going to stay close to home. I mean, the Melbourne Demons, the Melbourne Demons this year are to to me they're a little bit like the Cleveland Indians from the movie Major League.
Hmm.
I mean, I wonder if there's been a conversation that's taken place in the change room where one of the veteran, maybe Max Gawn has gotten on there like Tom Berenger and he's gone and said, let's just go win the whole fucking thing.
Hmm.
I
Yep.
wonder I wonder if that conversation has happened. If you've not seen Major League, it's a very funny film. Um, yeah, but
It is a classic.
absolutely.
I absolutely love. If you want to hear, there's some absolute classic lines in that.
Yes,
No,
yes.
100% on that. So let's move on to what you have to say is the talk of the footy world over the last probably month and a half, and
Hmm.
that is the Carlton Blues as they go up to NG Stadium up in Sydney and get another win. That is five in a row, ladies and gentlemen. New coach. No worries. Five wins in a row. 88-65, a 23-point win. And as we kind of said, the caretaker coach is still standing by it. He will not accept the full time role. But right now, like, it is crazy to think that because he has really taken the shackles. He has progressed this Carlton Footy Club to become modern day football.
Hmm.
Crippa has found his form.
Yeah.
Walsh has found his form. Mackay has found his form. Holy crap. Like, there's a possibility that Carlton could shit the bed for the first half of the year. Voss could leave, and the Blues could still make finals.
Yeah. And I will say I did tip Carlton to win this one this week. So
I did too.
I got
I did too. I did too. There,
I
I
got
only missed. I only missed one. I only
well,
missed one.
I went 4-3 this week because I we're gonna get to a game here. Actually the next game we're gonna get to because I have drawn a line in the sand with regards to one of the clubs we're gonna be talking about in the next game here because I'm so pissed at what they have done this year.
Hmm.
And as as the line goes, I'm going to paraphrase. I have not yet begun to rant.
Yep.
Uh, but no,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it is. It is refreshing to see, because Carlton has, since I've been watching the game, Carlton has not been great. Yes, they played in some finals, but they've not been that club that people have been afraid of.
They've had flashes.
Yes,
They've had
exactly,
pure
exactly.
flashes. Yep.
Yeah, that's and it's and there was too much talent on that side to get the results that they had been receiving it up until that point. So,
Hmm.
uh, did and I have I have a friend, and I've had this person on the podcast, and I don't want to mention his name because, and people can go and probably find it out if they wanted to, but this is a person who worked as a scout for Brisbane and was a scout with Brisbane when they hired Michael Voss as the senior coach. And this person is a mad Carlton supporter and was livid when they hired him. And he told me, he said, this is not going to go well. He's a good guy. He is not a good senior coach. He is not a good senior coach. This is not going to go well. And he was not happy about it by any stretch of the imagination. And he has been over the moon about the fact that he is now gone. And I've got to think that was his last shot at being a senior coach. I think we're going to get a lot of Michael Voss in the media now because what Fox
Hmm.
Footy's already picked him up for Thursday nights now.
Yep.
Um, which how does that work? Who are they telling from Thursday night? You're no longer relevant. We're going to kick you to the curb because the fired coach is going to come in and take your spot. So who do you think's getting their time on
Hear
TV
that, and they're
axed?
hear that they're going to somehow find a way to get an extra seat up in the box. No, so it's just it's fascinating. But this is another one. It's like as much as we want to, as much as we love Carlton, like
Hmm.
again, this is where we sit here and we go. If I'm Adam Kingsley, like what the hell? Like I get it. Like you've been playing some fantastic footy, and maybe it's the bye week. Maybe you came back, you're a little rusty coming off the bye week. I don't know, but this continues this Jekyll and Hyde part of the GWS Giants season that's very, very frustrating because there's some really good talent on this list.
Right, right.
I think it's much better than it is. And I understand there's injury. Okay, Tom Green's out for the year. Hogan has not been healthy most of the season.
Yeah,
Taylor's only in his
just
third or
coming
fourth
back
game
and
back from
yeah,
his injury. Toby Green has been too damn inconsistent this season. Just at least Clayton Oliver's probably been one of the most consistent guys on this roster, and he's a new player. So I don't know. It's just this is a very frustrating game. This is a very frustrating game because though I did tip Carlton in this
hmm
game. I tipped it more as because I like Carlton's momentum, and GWS is coming off a bye. Carlton has a ton of just good mojo and everything. So they just were the much better pick for me. This was a rather frustrating game for me because this again shows this Jekyll and Hyde nature of this GWS side. And I'm almost starting to see some people kind of start saying, is Kingsley wasting some of these sprays too early in the season? Is he not going to be able to pull it out of them
hmm
later on in the year when he's going to need it? That he's using these quarter time sprays so early in the season. Is it not going to be effective going forward? So let's move to the game that I know I'm fascinated on this because anybody that's listened to my show knows about the rant that I absolutely adored from Craig when it comes to this next club as Collingwood get a win 78-52, and I'll raise my hand. This is the one I missed
yeah,
because I thought this was a perfect setup for Port Adelaide to come
yeah.
and nip the Pies. The Pies get it done 78-52. I will do one of the few compliments when it comes to it because this individual is not one of my favorite people when it comes to persons. Footy players, the guy's an incredible talent. I can't argue that. Jordan DeGoey has
hmm
been absolutely fantastic this year. Like
Yeah,
he's finding his form. Do I think he's a great person off the field? No, I still think there's some things that rather frustrate me about this individual. I will
yeah.
say that. Josh Dacos is fantastic. Collingwood did what they needed to do. This is a
Right,
Port
right.
Adelaide team that I think Josh Carr is still kind of he's tinkering. He's moving some things around. I think this year we can put it in the bin. I just don't think Port's going to be able to do much. But I think Josh Carr's starting to figure some things out. These are these games that are frustrating because I think this was on a silver platter for them to win, and they just did not execute when they needed to. So I will open the floor to you as
Yeah.
you said. this is a team you cannot tip because of how they have absolutely buggered
Yeah.
up this particular
I
season. And I've said a few times, I think Scott Pendlebury could be the reason Collingwood do not make finals.
that's exactly where I am here. I've put my money where my mouth is on this because my tips for this week, I have tipped Richmond to beat Collingwood. I, okay. I I don't dislike Collingwood. I don't dislike any club in the comp. Okay. Let me say that again. I
Hmm.
came to the game so late in life that I don't have that built in. Yeah, I'm supposed to hate Hawthorn because I'm a cat supporter. I know that.
Hmm.
I appreciate Hawthorn. They're a very good club. Uh, but yes, the Pies got this win. You know, the Dacos brothers had a phenomenal game in this one.
Yep.
But to me, and again, we have to talk about the injuries. You know, Lukosius, you know, going down. Reddigley is
Hmm.
going to be out for the year with the patella tendon tear.
Yep.
Um, so I don't think things are going to get better for Port Adelaide going forward either. But to me, if I am a Collingwood player, and I absolutely congratulate Scott Pendlebury on this record that he broke with the 433 games. It's tremendous. I mean, it's an awesome achievement of longevity, of the physical discipline that he needed to have to make sure that his body was ready to play. And I get that he's 38 years old at this point in time, but with the impact that the Collingwood Magpies have over the AFL, they could have gone to AFL House and basically dictated the schedule that they wanted for this year and said, we want these games in this order so we can have this game be here and have him play this home game here. Because to me, if I'm a Collingwood player and they're resting Scott Pendlebury, who still is a very good player, because they want to make sure that he's playing in front of the biggest crowd at the MCG when he breaks this record. I'm wondering, is my own club tipping us to win? Are they looking out? Are they thinking that we can win? Because you said it yourself. Have they left games on the ground that they didn't win because they sat players? And again, they are an old side. I think that Collingwood is going to take a significant step backwards even next year yet. I know they're going to bring a few new players in, but they're not going to be able to bring that many in. But
If the
I've
rumors are true,
refused.
they're not getting any younger with the
Yeah,
person they're talking
yeah.
about right
Well,
now,
if it's
which I
Lockie
don't
Neal,
think
yeah,
really improves them. Like Lockie
yeah,
Neal comes in, it doesn't change
yeah,
it really doesn't change. Even if Scott Pendlebury and Sidebottom both retire and Lockie Neal comes in, it doesn't really take a hit to your average age. So no,
right. So
I'm we,
so
we
I
we
re
already know Geelong and Sydney are two games that they dropped that again, I understand Geelong was a 5-day rest. I 100% get that.
hmm
But that's two games already.
hmm
There's 8 points. And I said a couple weeks ago, I said right now they'd be in finals if they didn't drop those two games.
yes,
And there's going to be more. Like we know that going on this season, there's still some
yes,
tough matchups that they still have to play. If Collingwood falls short, we can really make the argument that did this whole rigmarole of trying to get Scott Pendlebury the home game at the MCG against West Coast, which
yeah,
damn near fell apart for them themselves,
right, right.
will it come back to bite them? And like, if it's not the players that I would have more of a gripe for. It's the members. Like the members
Well,
want to see finals.
that's true. That's a good point. Yeah, exactly.
Like
But
if I'm a member, like I get Scott Pendlebury wants to play at home in the MCG, but do I
mhm,
would I rather have Scott Pendlebury play his game breaking win up at Sydney and still have a chance to watch a final instead of seeing it? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but if I'm a paying
yeah,
member, I'd rather see a finals game than
right,
see a
right,
record broken at home in a season that's not going to produce
yeah.
finals.
And that's why I've said I'm no longer going to tip Collingwood the rest of this year because Collingwood was not tipping Collingwood to win. They were capitulating far too much this year. So if they're going to tip themselves to win, why should I? And they've got some games coming up this year. I mean, they play the Eagles again this year.
Yeah.
I'm tipping the Eagles to beat them because they
And
damn near
that's
beat them.
that's to the West Coast, which I think
Yeah,
is much
exactly. I mean,
much
they do
more
not
difficult. Yep.
they don't have an easy run home. I mean, after the Tigers, they got the Suns, they got the Roos who are they're
They're
kind of
still
like
way
they
too
got a
Jekyll and Hyde
yeah,
for me to
exactly.
sit here, but I still
They
that's still a risky game for Collingwood because if North plays the way they
yeah,
can beat them.
Carlton, Adelaide, Geelong, Hawthorn. Last game of the season against Brisbane, who may be fighting for their very lives to get
Yep.
into the eight themselves. And I'll tell you what, if it comes down to Collingwood trying to get into the 10 or
Against
Brisbane to get
Brisbane.
into the 10, I'm
tipping
I'm
Brisbane.
betting the house on Brisbane getting in
Yep.
as opposed to Collingwood in that situation,
Yep.
unless Lockie Neal really wants to get to Collingwood and make a good.
I'm sorry, I gotta laugh at that. It just I when I heard that rumor, I was just like, seriously. I'm like, Collingwood's just they're just not learning. They're just really, really not learning. So
What's
like
that show? Dad's Army.
well, it's trying the same thing twice and thinking you're gonna get different result is the definition of insanity. So
I think that was Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. Didn't they get married several times to each other? I
all
remember a
right, all right.
comedian. I remember a
Let's
comedian having a thing where you go to the
yep.
fridge and you get the carton of milk out and you go, "Ooh, that's spoiled," and you put it back in the fridge. I bet it'll be fresh tomorrow.
Mm, that is classic. So I mean, let's get through this next one quickly because was this the greatest game of football ever? Absolutely
No,
not.
I
Was
did
this
watch it
the
though.
was this the result that everybody kind of expected? Yes. Was this a game that it's very frustrating because this shows how good North and
Could be.
Richmond could be if they
Hmm.
played their best footy? Not so much. So North get a win by 25, 73-48. I mean, I'll just say this right now. For me, the standout is Cooper Trembath. I mean,
Yes.
how amazing is this young man? Like he has literally been just a breath of fresh air for the North Melbourne Footy Club. I'm loving Sheasel, LDU, some of these guys when they have fantastic games. I just wish they could do this in games that are just that much more important. I want to see
Right.
them do it against
Right.
a Carlton. I want to see them do it against a GWS. I want to see them do it against a Fremantle or a Sydney. And just it's just not there. And that's
Yeah.
the frustrating part because I look at this North list and I see Simpkin, LDU, Larkey, Zerha, some magnificently really good players,
Right.
and they're
Right.
just inconsistent. And it's very, very frustrating because I think North should make finals this year. 10
Hmm.
spots, I think they should make it. My worry is they're going to fall short.
Yeah. Well, and I actually dropped Trembath this week from my fantasy. I brought him on the previous week due to all the buys and dropped him this week because I needed somebody else in another position to beat your club. Uh, and this, I'm writing off this week. I've got no shot this week of getting a win. So I'm not even going to look at it this week because it's going to be a
You were
disaster.
you were me this week. I had the same problem because
Yeah,
I have three swans, and then
yeah,
when the worst part was one of the
exactly.
people I was going to get, Steez got to him first, and like, oh, I
Yep.
wanted to get Liberatore off the free agency market, and I was going to get him once I was sure he was in. And I guess Steez was what must have been watching when the teams came out because he got to it like 45 minutes before I woke up. So
Yeah.
I was like, love you,
Well,
Steez. Love you,
there's
dude.
there's that there's that time zone difference for you there. Yep.
Pretty
But
much.
it's yeah, I will say I did tip Richmond to win this one. I just thought this was going to be a game where North Melbourne overlooked an inferior side and allowed one to get away from them that they shouldn't have. And they played well enough to win this one. And you know, Trembath, I think, is about 6'3" or six foot
Yep.
four. And they played, he didn't have a lot of hit outs. I think he had what, nine of them during the
Yep.
course of the game. So it was interesting because I'd never seen him play and I've watched North Melbourne play quite a few times this year. I don't recall ever seeing him in the ruck at all. And maybe I've missed it. And I just, it wasn't being,
A few times. I know Essendon they threw him in there because I know, and then when Tristan Zerha was had his little brain fade in the
yes.
blood thing, and he came in and didn't do bad. But again, it's a lot like now what Essendon has the issue with when Peter Wright went down is that they had that kind of full forward mix,
Hmm.
movable, athletic ruck, and when they went down, it was like there was nothing there. Like that's the issue that they've run into. Like Cooper's good, but I just don't know if he's able to do it the entire game. He's
Right, right,
he's good for about 20%, but after that, like they kind of need Tristan there. But Tristan, the new rules are start. I think him and several rucks have had some trouble adjusting to the new ruck rules. I feel bad for some of these big lumbering rucks because I think they're going to find themselves out of the AFL because of
Riley
the way the
O'Brien.
new ruck rules are. Yep. Riley O'Brien. I think Sean Darcy may be cast aside. I think
Yeah,
one of either Lloyd Meek or Ned Reeves eventually is going to get let go because
yeah,
they can't both do it. So
right, right.
I don't know.
Yeah. And I I still think there's a lot of talent on this Richmond side. It's just not far enough around the track to get themselves to where,
Well,
and
and
then
there's
they got a
just
crap ton of
so
injuries
many
too.
injuries.
Yeah,
They
exactly. Yep.
cannot stay healthy. I
Yeah.
mean, Josh Smiley, we still haven't seen him. I worry he may never see an AFL because they just can't get him healthy because
Yeah.
he goes and kicks in a local thing and hurts his quad again. So it's very frustrating because this is a Richmond side. They are built for the future, but their veterans are the ones that are going down, and these youngsters are just not ready for AFL footy at the top level, and that's the frustrating part. They've got some great talent. Sammy Grill is great. Sammy Grill is great. Some of these,
Hmm.
Sammy Laylor just can't stay healthy. Smiley can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
Jonty Fall has been on and off, so it's like they've got some great youth, but the issue they run into is that youth is injured. Their veterans, Prestia, Hopper, Taranto, like
And
they're
Curvis just
good,
coming
but they're
back.
just not
Yeah.
playing well. And then Curvis just
Yeah.
finally got back after
Yeah.
his hamstring injury. So they can't stay healthy. And that's the biggest frustration. Like, I don't blame Uze at all because he's been handed a really crappy hand and has been told to try to
Hmm.
make off like he's a magician and he just can't do it. And that's the frustrating part for him.
Well, that's actually one of my questions that we're gonna get into a little bit later on as well.
Yep. So let's get through it. Last game of the round. I mean, this was carnage, like absolute carnage. Western Bulldogs going to win 83-61, but I mean, Sinclair goes down, TDK goes down. I think Western Bulldogs, like this was absolute carnage in this one. Like the
Matt Kennedy
doggies,
went down, I think, too, did he
yeah,
not?
yeah.
Yeah.
Kennedy
Yeah.
goes down. Like this is a Western Bulldogs team that it's like, I mean, Bont. I mean, how amazing was that one-handed scoop and goal? Like, holy
Hmm.
crap! I mean, the
Yeah.
doggies did what they needed to do, but this is a St. Kilda side that frustrates me because you've got Naz, you've got Sinclair, and I know Sinclair goes down hurt in this game. They've got some incredible players. I mean, how awesome has Max Hall been through the center for the St. Kilda Saints this year? But again, another game right there for St. Kilda, and a combination of injury, inconsistent play cost them another 4 points. And the Western Bulldogs, they get the 4 points they need in a tough game.
Yeah. Yeah. And and these are two clubs that I think are going to be battling with one another for
That 10th spot.
one of the last spots. And I think, I do think that just from an experience standpoint, I think that the Bulldogs will be the one to get over the line on that one. I think that's who I would go with on this one. But yes,
Yeah.
it's I don't know if maybe just the Saints need another year for this new group to gel. I don't know if with having brought in as many new pieces as they have this year, and you know, do they move Rowan Marshall out after this year? I don't know. Has the experiment with trying to play him up forward a little bit more worked enough to keep him there? Is that going to be enough with the ruck situation? And I know he played a little bit more in the ruck with it was a rib I think that DeConing did.
Yep, two
Um,
broken ribs and a
yeah,
punctured lung. So that'll probably be at least one more week, if not 2 weeks out for TDK. So Rowan Marshall will probably take the brunt. Thankfully, they have a bye week
they
this
have a
week, so
bye.
that helps them.
Yes.
But even still, I think there's going to be at least one more game the TDK is probably not going to play, and that Rowan Marshall will have to take the bulk of the ruck duties for the Saints on
Yeah.
that one. So
Yep. Yeah.
yeah, nope. So, and then we had four teams have a bye as the Brisbane Lions, Essendon Bombers, Sydney Swans, and West Coast Eagles all got to kick their feet up and watch this particular round. So that is round 15 done. Let's jump to it. I've been having so much fun the last couple of weeks playing start bench cut with my co-host, so I thought I would do it one more time. And I think this is going to be fascinating because my with Greg, I cannot wait because he thinks of some really good questions. So I'm going to start us off, and we kind of discussed it just the tiniest bit earlier. So I'm going to throw it up. Here's my first question for start bench cut. The wild card will actually be exciting for the competition this year.
Oh, I'd say start on that. I agree that it's exciting. It's just another one of those things that I just hate seeing, because there's so much American culture that just gets shoved down the throats of everywhere else around the world.
Mhm.
And I know there's some resentment towards that. And that's why I kind of go on the apology tour for that sort of thing. I do think it's going to be exciting.
Mhm.
Because remember last year it was we were down to what was two, it was basically the Swans and the and the
Throwing
Bulldogs
to the
fighting for the
doggies for that eighth
for the
spot.
eighth
Yep.
spot last year, and nobody else had a snowball's chance in Hades of playing finals.
Hmm.
None whatsoever. I mean, you look at the you look at the ladder as it sits right now. Um, you got down to the 14th spot. Carleton's sitting at 14th at 6-8,
Yep.
and they are what they're 4 points away from being in
Yep.
the ninth spot. Now their percentage is going to need a lot of work, so they're going to almost have to win an entire extra game to
Yep.
make up for that percentage. It's close to 20 points lower than everyone else's. But no, I think the wild card is going to be a good thing once it starts to happen, especially for if you're a fan and a supporter of one of the clubs that's in the market or in the running for that. But I'm not a huge fan of of the Americanization of the game even
Hmm.
more. I mean that part, it's just it's maybe unsettling is not the right word, but I just don't. I thought footy was awesome. I still think footy's awesome. Um, but it's I don't know. It's frustrating to just see us continuing to creep in a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more.
Yeah, but unfortunately, they see a few things that are over here, and they think that they're great things to add. But as I've said a few times, it's the attention span of a gnat problem in
Hmm.
sport nowadays that I
Squirrel.
think that's exactly very frustrating because like I know some people that'll watch a couple of games last year that was like 53-48 and everybody's like it's a terrible game of football and I'm sitting there going please more of that because I
Hmm.
like when there's actually you have to earn a win. It's not
Yeah.
just I'm just going to outkick you, I'm just going to outscore you. It's very frustrating for me. So no, I'm
Yep.
100% with you. Like I enjoy a good old-fashioned slog. So for me, I I think there's going to be excitement. It prevents dead rubbers, as they call.
Hmm.
I just don't see 7, 8, 9, 10 having a chance to win a premiership when they're going to have to win an extra game just to get
Yeah. Yeah.
to the grand final compared to a top four side that probably can maybe play 3 games max to win a premiership. You're going to have to win five if you're a 7, 8, 9, or 10 seed, which is very difficult.
Yep.
So, your first question for me,
Okay,
sir.
my first question for you then, and this is kind of a lengthy one here.
Sure.
Are the D's this year's flat track bullies similar to the Bulldogs last year, where they were beating up on? Yeah, they beat the Suns, they beat the Lions, they beat the Hawks, but then but they've lost to the Dockers, the Swans, the Giants, the Bulldogs, the Crows, and the Bombers.
Mhm.
They still have to finish up with the Hawks, Cats, Suns, Dockers, and Bulldogs. And I wonder, without Myachuk, do they have enough to stay in the top six? And I know we talked about Stephen King
Mhm.
and the job he's done. We mentioned these games previously. Are they beating up on lesser clubs? And if not, are they going to be able to beat the clubs that they're kind of on their level at that point in time in order to get themselves into the top six?
Well, I almost want to look. I'm going to bench it more is because it's more of the point out that Melbourne can win at home.
Hmm.
They can't win on the road. It seems like they hop on a plane and they just there's just something just not right once they hop on a plane and go on the road. So I'd be fascinated to go through their particular fixture and just say, so what of those games are home games? What of those games are road games? Because if they're staying to what they're supposed to, which means they win their home games
Yeah.
and they lose their road games. So I just pulled up their fixture. So
Yep. That's I'm looking at it
if
too.
that stays there, they should lose to the Hawks. They'll beat Richmond, which they should. Marvel Stadium. So well, I'm not really sure on that North game, but the Cats they get it home at the MCG again. They've won all their games at the MCG. They got to go up to Gold Coast for People First Stadium. Well, again, if we stay on that, they should lose that one.
Hmm.
But that game round 22, they
Yep. Yep.
host Fremantle. So if they win MCG games, they should win that one.
Hmm.
And then they host the Western Bulldogs, but they go to the Adelaide Oval. So I'm sitting here going like, I wouldn't call them flat track bullies because they're just conveniently the games that they're getting at home are the ones that happen to be at the MCG or the ones against some weaker opponents. But looking at this, like, can they go down to Utah Stadium and beat the Hawks, which isn't easy.
Right. Right.
That's a tough one. Can you go to Marvel Stadium and beat North Melbourne, who play pretty well under. Can they get that win at home at the MCG against Geelong? Can they go up to People's First Stadium and get a win? Can they beat the top of the table Fremantle at that MCG? Like, I have more questions. I'm going to bench it because
That's certainly
again,
fair.
staying
Yeah.
off of that, they should win the ones at home. Can they steal a few on the road to give them a few extra points
Right.
because they
Right.
have frustratingly lost a couple of games on the road? They probably should have won. They should have beat GWS Dallas Springs. They should have. They were really, really close with Sydney and had a chance to beat Sydney up in Sydney. So, like that'll be the question. Like, you get Fremantle at home, you get Geelong at home, a couple of top four sides at home. If you're staying to that, they should
Yeah.
win it. So
Yeah.
I'm going to bench it right now because there's still a few things that I still think need to kind of go through before we can go to that. All right. My second question, we kind of already discussed this, but I want to hear your answer. Adelaide is the most dangerous side outside of Fremantle and Sydney.
I'm certainly not going to say cut on this one because I don't disagree with it, but I'm not. Part of me, based upon what we talked about earlier on in the episode, it might have been before we started recording, with what I discussed with Mick Aussie today when we recorded. Um, I'm going to have to say partially agreeing because if I'm going to say if the Cats get healthy, they can just eviscerate a side. If Jeremy Cameron is gets back to where he is, where he's been, I think that's a club that could still very much do a lot of damage and score a ton of points against the side. But until that happens, I would have to say I'm gonna say start on that one because the Cats have not shown that yet because there's still been quite a bit of dysfunction with their small forwards. Um, you know, Shannon Neal has started to take a step forward, but and out of Cameron's shadow, and he's moving up the ground more than he has in the past. Um, but I think that the Crows have got things rolling for them better right now than the Cats do. I think they're just in a slightly better spot on the ladder at this point in
Mm,
time.
yeah, nope. So, all right, what's your next one for me?
Okay. We kind of addressed this one already, and I think I know how you're going to answer it.
Okay.
Um, is Adam Uze really a Scooby-Doo villain? And at the end of the season, when they pull the mask off, it's going to be Michael Voss. Is he really the one that's holding back the Tigers?
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. Um,
Zoink, Scoob! I think we got ourselves a clue.
I'm gonna bench it because again, I love Uze. I feel terrible for him because he just has not had any luck in any of the seasons that he has coached.
Right.
Just because he just there is some kind of, I mean, it is something out of Scooby Doo, the hoodoo that is over the Richmond Footy Club since Uze has taken over. That just they cannot stay healthy. So I'm gonna bench it. I don't think it's on Ooze. I'm honestly like, if I'm the Richmond Tigers, do you look into their high performance? Like, is something wrong with their high
Hmm.
performance that they just cannot? They keep having these soft tissue injury over and over and over again. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna bench it right now because I don't think it's Ooze's coaching. There's something wrong with high performance or the way these players. I don't know if they're coming in with niggles because they're not training right over the off season. I don't know, but I can't blame a coach on something that he has absolutely no control over, and that's
Yeah.
soft tissue and injury that he has absolutely no control over.
Certainly
So,
fair enough. Yep.
all righty, this is going to be a weird one for the cat supporter. I'm fascinated on your answer on this one. Right now, the best grand final at the end of the season would be Fremantle and Sydney.
I'm gonna say start at this point in time because by the end of the fixture, I think that the Swans are going to get a few of their injured players back. I think Golden should be back.
There's talk
Um,
he's back this week. We'll have to see.
okay. You
As
know,
far as I am aware, I have not heard anything contradicting that. But the calendar was circled that he should be back after
yeah.
the bye round. Sounds like there's potential. Carton could be back because it's going to be over 12 days because of the bye.
Right.
I think Melican is potentially back. Rampy is potentially back.
Will McInerney
Um,
make it back by the end of the year?
McInerney probably going to be round 22, round
Yeah. So I mean, so
23.
so if
So,
they're back and they get games and Papley's going to be back in a couple of weeks,
yep,
you get if your side is healthy, if your side is healthy, I think that's one hell of a matchup between, and there's going to be a lot of available tickets for the grand final because all the people in Victoria are going to go, screw it, we don't want to go to watch this one. Except for the South Melbourne supporters. They're going to want to get in there. But
there'll be some Victorians there that are red and white. No, 100%. No, it's
yeah,
I'm 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 fascinated. I still say I think Geelong and Adelaide are going to be the two wild cards in that to potentially spoil that. But right now, if you look at the ladder, the top two teams are Fremantle and Sydney. So it's I was just interesting as the Cats supporter that you are what you said on that. So all right, what's your third
well,
question
well,
for
I
me?
I I try to be. I try to take off my Homer glasses, and
I
and
try
and
to
be
as
real
much as I can.
and be realistic, okay? But both of us support clubs that have had a lot of success. So it's,
Yep.
we can take off those glasses, but yet we still realize that our clubs have, for the most part, have been successful. So my third one for you: do you really trust the Kangaroos? I mean, they're back to level, but the end of their fixture is treacherous with the D's, Saints, Hawks, Bulldogs, Cats, and Swans to close out the year. I mean, are they going to just implode against these better sides at the end of the year here? And it's going to be another year where they maybe get themselves 8 wins, but still end up finishing, 4 or 5 games under level.
Yep. I'm gonna cut it because I there's just something about this North Melbourne side that I can't 100% say. I think they sneak into 10th if they get I think they sneak into 10th. I think they're just doing enough. Port Adelaide is just inconsistent enough. Collingwood is just inconsistent enough. St. Kilda's injuries, I think Sinclair's injury is really going to rip them a little bit. I think TDK's injury is going to cost them unless Rowan Marshall has it goes back to what Rowan Marshall was before TDK came in.
Yeah.
So most of the teams around them, I just don't see anybody taking their place around them. Like that's like I think they might get in purely on the fact that most of the rest of the teams around them are going to have some trouble as well. So
Yeah. Because they've
I'm
got,
gonna I'm gonna cut it more is because I see what's around them.
yeah.
Like it's Carlton coming on an absolute heater could be the
Hmm.
only thing that
Yep.
could
Yep.
potentially do that. But I worry Carlton comes back to earth a little bit over these next few rounds because there's only so much that they can stay on this energy high, and eventually they're going to get some teams that are just they that are going to have a day and they're going and then what happens when he loses that first game? What's the reaction like in the fan base once that first loss happens? Is does the air get let out of the balloon and then
Good point.
everything goes back to
Good point.
What Voss had?
Yeah.
So I look at it and I go like I think North Melbourne's in a situation where the teams around them implode to the
Hmm.
point where they make finals purely on the fact that they keep their head above water because they win just enough that they
Yeah.
need to.
I mean, the
So,
next the next 3 weeks for them are really important because they've got Essendon, Port
yep.
Adelaide, and the Magpies.
And they
If they can
should
win, if they can win those 3 games,
two
that's
of the
going to give
three, I
them
think,
10.
yep,
Well, if they win all three, that gives them 10 wins. And
two
then
of
they've
the
got to
three, I
figure out how to
think they'll
win
be
two out
favored.
of
I think they'll
two.
be favored in the next two. It's that Collingwood game that I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think two
But
of the three they'll be favored.
yeah. And
Yep.
I'm going to try to get to see them while I'm there. I'll have a
That'll be
couple of
fascinating.
I will have a couple of opportunities to get to see them. Because yeah, because I'm going to go to as many games as I possibly can get to because I've got a few individuals who have reached out that said we might be able to get you some less expensive tickets here and there. So
Hmm.
that they have some connections that I'm gonna hopefully take advantage of. But I had to
Awesome.
jump on the Cats tickets today to get those in the pipeline there. So
Yep.
we're on to my fourth one, right?
Now, I think actually I have my fourth one, and I'm fascinated on this because
Oh, that's right. Yes.
this is a little bit of the American coming out again because I know that there's some talk there have been some talk in professional sports over here. If Carlton make finals, is it
Hmm.
actually bad for the club in the long run? It's the whole tanking discussion.
Yes. Right. 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 And I yeah, because I don't. I think that yeah, I wonder if you look at, and I guess it makes this statement a kind of a moot point. But I was going to say, yeah, I guess is how many players on this list right now at Carleton are going to be on that club the next time they play in a prelim final?
Hmm.
How many players are going to be there? Is Patrick Cripps going to be there? Sam Walsh will likely still be there. You know, is uh, Weiring, is he going to be there?
Yeah.
It's just it's not necessarily an old list. I mean, we're not talking Collingwood old, but we're talking, they definitely have.
They're not spring
See,
chickens.
exactly. So do they do they realize that they need to, and this gets actually get into my fourth question here, and this may be why this person, and I'm spoiling my fourth question right here. I'm just going to tell you what my fourth question is now,
Sure.
because I'm spoiling it for you, because my question is, Josh Frazier, this time next year he's closing in on finishing his first full year as the Blues senior coach, or does he not do that? But I'm I'm wondering if he's sitting there looking at the list and thinking to himself, we may get into finals this year, but I know darn well that this club, we may go play a wild card game and get bounced out and be done. And that might keep us away from some of the talent that we wanted to add to our list through the draft. I mean, you bring up a really good point about that. So as far as I want to say bench on it, but I'm kind of leaning bench slash start on this, because I don't think that this is going to be a club that's going to make a prelim this year. I
Hmm.
really don't. I think when the shit hits the fan, um, even if they were to play, a Cats team who lost to them in the second round, or earlier in the year, and they played the Cats in the second round of finals, or I guess maybe it would be in this case the third. Because I'm going to be optimistic the Cats won't be in the bottom uh, part of the eight. Um, that the Cats would take care of business, or
Hmm.
if it was the Swans, that they would take care of business, if they ended up playing them in that point in time. So this is a group that might not have a lot of them that are going to be on their next preliminary final club or grand final club. I mean
Hmm.
that's a bit more of a pipe dream, I think, than certainly than a prelim. But um, he may see the handwriting on the wall and realize that, what, this is not the club that I would have a couple of years from now. And do I want to put myself through what I'm seeing Uze going through, and what I'm seeing the Eagles going through, and Clarko with North Melbourne going through? Or do I want to just go be, like a really, really good assistant somewhere, and then maybe something opens up that's, a coach decides to retire. I don't know his lineage in terms of what tree he's come from, but maybe in a couple of years, um, Brisbane's coach decides to step away, and you got still a halfway decent young list up there, and he says, "Oh, that might be a job that would interest me because they could be competitive still."
Yep. No, 100%. And I think the biggest thing is, and I know that the couch talked about it when I watched the couch
Hmm.
today, is that it's Cody Walker, because Cody Walker is a father son that's a top five pick.
Hmm.
And they even said, with the new rules, with the changing of the percentages and the discounts and everything like that, like if Carlton make the 10, again, it's weird to say the 10, I'm so used to saying the 8, that it could cost them a lot, because it may actually force them to trade a Crippa to get the
Hmm.
capital they're going to need to bring Cody Walker in. So
Right,
that's
right.
why I kind of brought up the question, like, and to go off your fourth, I'm gonna cut it, because the one thing that the coach has basically said this entire time, and he's not deviated, and I got to give him credit for that, because most
Right.
coaches might have undeviated, is he's basically said he's not ready, which is really,
Yeah.
really weird to say for a coach that's 5-0 in the 5 games that he's coached. He's done well, but I also kind of think is that there's so much more to it. Like, he kind of came in when there was absolutely no stress, nobody
Hmm.
expected anything. Like, Coach Frazier has capitalized on the fact that this is a club that basically there was no expectations. Everybody was expecting him bottom out. We'll get a good pick. We'll get Cody Walker in. We'll get that youngster. And he started to win games. And now you're starting to see this. And I detest this. Is that it was the same thing with West Coast and North Melbourne a few years ago with Harley Reid. Like, people were saying like that we want to lose because we want to make sure we get Harley. And I'm like, You don't get it. Like these players do not give, and pardon my French, do not give two flying shits about this 18-year-old kid. They do not care. They want to win games of footy. So I'm sitting here going like, in the long run, some people could say, well, this is bad for the club
Hmm.
to make finals.
Well,
But I'm going to say this. I think it's actually good for the club because it shows that this list isn't as terrible as some
right,
people
right.
were making it off there
Yeah,
for a
and
bit.
I think we've seen that over the last 6 weeks now. Yeah,
If we
but
get the right, if you get the right coaching, things could change.
and I'm going to ask you I'm going to ask you a follow-up, a question without notice, if you will.
Sure.
And it's unfortunately because I've seen it bandied about a little bit, whether or not can't remember where I saw it, but does the AFL go to something like
The anti-tanking
the
rules. Yep.
draft lottery
Yep.
and going to where they're having the ping pong balls in the and this and that and uh, I don't know if that, you
I
know
don't like it.
yeah,
I
again, I'm
don't
not
like it
advocating,
at
I'm just but
all
yeah.
because it's one of the most frustrating things that I hear it over here all the time is that we need to tank. We need to tank. Like, no, like that's like there is no integrity in the sport anymore to just play and then figure it out when things happen. It's
Hmm.
so frustrating. Like I hear it all the time whenever I tune into any kind of sports thing. It's like, well, this team has been fined for tanking, and it's like, don't fine them. Just say you're not going to get the number one pick. Like you punish teams for being stupid. Like, come
Yeah.
on. Like, stop sitting here. They'll pay the money as long as they get the number one pick. Like, tell them, like, one warning, and then the second time, no, you don't get the one pick. If you get the one pick, you're going to go to five, and it's just going to elevate two, and you're going to push the pick. So it keeps teams from tanking. Stop doing it so simply. Just literally make it like, if you tank and we figure it out, you're done.
Hmm.
That's it.
That's
There's
certainly.
you completely like don't even worry about like it's I think some people say, well, you're incentivizing losing. I don't think so. I think present day fans have incentivized losing because they think that the 18-year-old kid is the savior. And in so
Yeah,
many sports, it's just not the truth. It's
absolutely.
not. If Harley Reid was the savior of the West Coast Eagles, why are they still in the bottom six? Why is it that William Dersma comes in this year and now they're starting to win a little bit? Oh yeah, because there's 23 guys on a footy team that have to play. One player is not going to change that. Nick Dacos did not win a premiership his first year that he came in, and he was the wonder kid. Like,
Hmm.
it's not going to change your things that much. So I just don't understand tanking. It's the most frustrating thing in the world. I'm just like, keep some integrity in the sport or get out of it. And like if you are a general manager and you're telling your team to lose because you want the number one pick, I would be firing that general manager as soon as the words are out of his lips. Like that is me personally. But I don't know.
Certainly fair
Maybe I
enough.
have
Yep.
some integrity in sports nowadays. So
Yep.
my fifth question, and I'm fascinated on this because you know me when I know as a cat, so I'm going to ask you a cat's question on this. The cat's current form should make their supporters worried.
Uh, I'm going to say bench. I'm going to say bench only because we have seen this sort of thing before. And yes,
Hmm.
this is a club that is also um, enjoying a nice warm cup of Metamucil before they go to bed at night to make sure that they're or Ovaltine, um, with their their Tim Tams before they head off to bed in the evening at 9 o'clock because it's really late and the early bird dinner special starts at 4. Um, but it's I'm not too concerned about it because as I'd mentioned earlier, in Chris Scott we trust. He knows his club better than anybody else. And I think that maybe like for example, this last game against Fremantle. I don't think Fremantle had anybody of note that did not play. I mean, they had pretty much their best 23 out there. Um, the Cats were missing Bailey Smith. They were missing Tom Stewart, who the one thing I am worried about is his number of concussions he's had in the last couple of years. That worries me. But I think that he is in many ways kind of a chess master as far as this goes. And he's not going to win every tournament, if you will, but he knows how to get his pieces into the right place at the right time to have as much success as he can possibly have. So I'm not concerned. It's frustrating, as we do when we get up to watch our games. We get up quite often at you know 4 o'clock in the morning in
Ungodly
your case,
hours.
or
Yep.
5 o'clock in the morning, to watch
Yep.
a game, or we're staying up until 3 a.m. to watch a game. And we go, son of a bitch, we let that one get away. So we're frustrated about that. But then I think we also take, you know, um, we take solace in knowing that he's got his ducks in a row and it's going to be okay.
Hmm.
Now, the thing that did worry me this week was somebody, alluding to the idea that maybe he's going to be the guy that Tasmania wants for their first coach. That worries me
Heard that
more
one.
than
Yep.
that one worries me more about anything that's gone on with, having lost the game against, Fremantle this past week.
Yep.
The idea that he, because if he's from, I think he's from Tasmania, if
Yeah,
I'm not
he's a
mistaken.
Tasman. Yep.
Yeah. So that worries me more than anything else.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
I understand. It's just I'm just the Cats are just too good at they're just too good a side. They're too well coached.
No.
I'm not worried, but I can understand why some people have lost four of them, 3 and 4 of their last five. So
Yeah.
it's a
Now,
little frustrating, but no.
there are a couple of beloved players who I think are close to no longer being there. Okay, I think there's a few players that may be on their way out. I think Cole Jasny, Jed Buse. I think Mark Blitzhouse maybe getting ready to hang up his boots. Reece Stanley, I think assuredly is gonna hang up his boots. Although he's probably gonna come in and play in the grand final and win the Norm Smith medal.
Probably at the pace it's going.
Yeah, so
Jeez.
I'm kidding about that, but it's like you take him out of the cotton wool and you throw him out there, and he goes like, "Yeah, I remember how to do this."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nope. Nope.
Okay, so my last
100%.
one for you.
Sure.
Your Swans and the Dockers are locked in a mortal struggle for their minor premiership.
Nope.
I don't think anybody else is going to be threatening them for that spot. So, who do you think is going to finish in the third and fourth spots on the ladder, and who's getting in to the 10 that nobody expects, and who's going to fall out? So there's a bunch of pieces to this one.
Ooh, not so much a benches start is actually picking third and fourth. I think Hawthorn and Adelaide are the two teams that I could see there. Geelong it's one of those three that's really difficult because it really all depends on how things go. I think Hawthorn is
Hmm.
really solid. I think I'm going to put Geelong and Hawthorn as the 3 and 4. I think Adelaide just falls short and fall into five unless Fremantle or Sydney absolutely nosedive, which I don't. The 2 and 3 game gaps, I think, is going to be difficult to catch up unless both start having some significant injuries. A team that falls out, I worry it's North Melbourne. I don't
Hmm.
want them to be, but I worry it's North Melbourne. And honestly, I think it's Carlton makes this just absolutely epic run and gets into finals at 10. But I will say this, if North Melbourne stays in, I think it's Gold Coast. I worry Gold Coast, their fixture home is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, and
They do not get any help from the fixture makers at the end of this season because they were given such a nice draw to start the year. And I think it could bite them. And the whinging that we are going to hear from Queensland is going to be glorious.
well, and
So,
and again, this is a result of how well they finished last year because they got a tougher
yeah.
draw this year.
Yep. So
Yeah.
I honestly like. I think Western Bulldogs and Brisbane will stay in. I think they may fight with Melbourne and they may fight with Melbourne for that sixth spot. But I think it's Gold Coast or North Melbourne, whichever. I think North Melbourne's got a better fixture that they can
Hmm.
win a few games. I think
Right,
Gold Coast is
right.
difficult. So I think Carlton in, Gold Coast out, which will be fascinating to see the Western Bulldogs, Brisbane, North Melbourne, and Carlton be the wild card games
Yeah.
will be fascinating on that.
Now,
But yeah, so
here's and I'm going to ask this as just a follow up here. I mentioned Adam Uze, but I'm gonna toss this one out as this could fit into your categories here.
sure.
The St. Kilda Saints have a new senior coach in 2027.
I'm gonna bench it. I'm gonna bench it. I'm not gonna say yes and I'm not gonna say no because
Okay.
I'm interested to see how Ross handles this because I think it's do they make finals or not? If they make
Yeah. Yeah.
finals, I think Ross stays. I think if they don't, I think there's some thought processes in the upper rounds that maybe they get a younger coach to take this list that they've New York Yankees splash the cash for to try to keep
Hmm.
together to try to make finals. And I think maybe that they worry that Ross is too defensive. So maybe they go for the Josh Frazier to take over if he doesn't take the Carlton job, or maybe to take a younger assistant an assistant coach from one of these teams that is there and ready. So I'm gonna bench it just because I want to see where St. Kilda falls. If they fall outside the 10, could we see Ross let go to maybe bring the revamp of the St. Kilda Saints? If they make finals, then I think Ross stays because I think then they can go, well, Ross still does enough. There's still some gelling with this team. So I'm going to bench it right now because I want to see how they do at the end of the season, where they finish. Do they finish 11th, 12th, 13th, or do they somehow sneak into that ninth or 10th spot?
Well, I just think that if he does go, we're going to see an entirely new show on Fox Footy next year. Voss and Ross.
That would be hilarious. Oh
Spon
my gosh, that would be
sponsored by
hilarious.
I don't know, some sort of a company that makes cans because they both got canned. Uh,
Oh, that would be hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So that's a great way to end that particular
Ro-
segment.
yeah,
Let's
Ross and
hop.
Voss and the theme song written by Bruce Springsteen, written by the boss.
That is absolutely fantastic.
That was one too many.
Yeah, just the littlest bit. All right, so we'll go real quick. We'll do this because we are talking, and I don't want to take up too much more time. So we'll do quickly team of the week and power rankings. We'll start off team of the week, fullback line. We'll start off with a cat, Jack Henry. I know he didn't play much forward, but he goes and kicks a goal, so we'll give him a little bit of love. North Melbourne's Luke Parker and Mac Andrew of the Gold Coast Suns will round out the
Hmm.
half fullback line, and along the halfback line we have Nick Newman of the Carlton Blues, Nasiah Wanganeen Miller of the St. Kilda Saints, and Joel Jeffrey of the Gold Coast Suns. On the wings, we have Connor McDonald of the Hawthorne Hawks and Connor Stone of the GWS Giants. Through the center, Luke Jackson is our ruck. Jordan DeGoey, Jai Newcomb, and Jordan Dawson will be our center midfield. Along the half forward line, we have Josh Rosselli of the Adelaide Crows, Melbourne's Jacob Van Royen, and Toby Green of the GWS Giants will be our half forward line, and our full forward line, Cooper Trembath of the North Melbourne Kangaroos, Dylan Moore of the Hawthorn Hawks, and Ben Long of the Gold Coast Suns will round out my starting line. On the bench, mid-season draft man Hugo Hall Kahan of the Adelaide Crows will be my defender. My midfielder will be Georgie Hewitt of the Carlton Blues. Tristan Sheary is my ruck for the North Melbourne Kangaroos. My forward, Nick Watson of the Hawthorn Hawks, and Harvey Langford, the winger from the Melbourne Demons, will round out my bench as my utility. I know it's a lot of names really quickly. Your thoughts on team of the week?
I I I I did not put a list together for that, but I mean, a lot of people that you mentioned there had fantastic games. I mean, yeah, I watched, like I said, I watched four out of the seven. I read up on the other three. I think your list was great, and it's, there, Luke Jackson just amazes me, and I still think if the people who are voting on the Brownlow votes were honest with themselves, he would be a real threat to win the Brownlow this year.
I 100% agree.
But unfortunately, it's going to go to it's going to go to another friggin' midfielder.
Yep. It's gonna go to
And
John. It's gonna go to into a Nick Dacos. It's gonna go to an Isaac Heaney. It's gonna go to a Jordan Dawson who have been good, but
mhm.
they haven't had the consistency that Luke Jackson has when it comes to impact. I think Brayshaw, Sarong, Bolton, and all those midfielders really have benefited from what Luke Jackson. No, I 100% agree. I would love to see Luke Jackson up there in the votes, but well, we will really have to see. So, really quickly, I'll do my power rankings again. As I say, when most ways, it's the last 5 games of the round, how many you've won in a row. So, really quickly, at 5, the Adelaide Crows. At 4, the Western Bulldogs. At 3, the Carlton Blues. At 2, the Sydney Swans. And at 1, the Fremantle Dockers. I mean, it's pretty simple when it comes to the five on that one. A lot of wins by these teams and playing some fantastic footy. So let's end this particular episode as per usual. We will tip again. The buy rounds are on its last legs. Thank God when it comes to it. 7 more games, and we'll finally be through the buys. And we start off with an absolute cracker, a rematch of a grand final of a couple of years ago as the Brisbane Lions at home at the Gabba host the Sydney Swans. A fantastic one. Who do you like in this?
I'm going with the Swans on this one. Yeah, because I recorded my tips episode today, so I'm going to try to. I think I'm going to give you the exact same ones that I gave you on my show as well. But I'm going with the Swans to win this one.
All right, I'm going to tip
Yep.
Sydney on this one. I think if Errol Goulden is back, I think it's fantastic. Grundy will be there. Again, the health of the Sydney Swans is starting to come in, and the lack of health and some missing soldiers for the Brisbane Lions, I think, will hurt them when it comes to it. Friday night footy at the MCG sees the Hawthorn Hawks host the GWS Giants. Give me the Hawks on this one. The Giants
Me
too
too. Me
consistent
too.
for me. I will take the Hawks on this one.
I took the Hawks on this one as well. Yep. The Giants are, as you said, they're an enigma.
Yep, yep, yep.
They're like a shotgun blast. You never know exactly where it's going to go.
Pretty much. Let's hop over to Marvel Stadium where we see the Carlton Blues. Can they keep the streak alive as they face the West Coast Eagles in this one? Who do you like in this one?
I went with Carlton, but I was really strongly considering West Coast because they've been playing some better football, and I thought, if somebody's going to come along and steal a game from them, it could be this club. But I did go with Carlton on this one.
I will say this: if this is at Optus Stadium, I might have tipped the Eagles, but because
Yeah,
this is in
yeah,
Victoria at Marvel
yep,
Stadium, I'm going to
yep.
tip the Blues in this one. But I agree with you. The Eagles have some mojo. I like what they're doing. It's the road part of it
Hmm.
that I think is going to hurt them. Collingwood versus Richmond. I'm not going to ask you because you already said you can't tip
Yes,
Collingwood, so you would tip Richmond. I'm going
yes,
to tip the Pies in this one as much as I would love for Richmond to throw a huge spanner in the works on this one. I just
yes.
think
That would be wonderful.
the Pies just have a little too much. Richmond just have a little too little in this one. So I'm going to tip the Pies on this one. I love it. Saturday night footy, free air, no other games. The showdown. Port
Hmm.
Crows. Who do you like?
I'm going with the Crows to win this one by probably 4 goals.
I am tipping the Crows in this one, but I mean, it is the showdown. It is
Hmm.
never the way you think it is. This is primed for Port Adelaide to throw a spanner in the works on this one. I hope not for the Crows' sake because the Crows are starting to find it, but this is a perfect storm for the power to throw a huge spanner in the Crows side. Tipping Crows, but will not shock me if the Power pull a showdown miracle on
Yep,
this one.
yep.
Marvel Stadium, North Melbourne versus Essendon on this one. Tipping North Melbourne, hoping Essendon give us a game, but North Melbourne need to win this one and they need to
Now,
win this impressive because they need the points on this one.
this is where you're going to go. You did what? I
You tipped
actually tipped
Essendon.
I tipped Essendon because I thought North Melbourne is they've won
Love
two in
it.
a row. They're
Yep.
gonna get complete. And again, for those of you who don't watch my tips, I do make some really bizarre tips, and sometimes I'm right.
You
I remember
find you
there was a
find some
game
miracles that
there was
it's
a game
fascinating.
there was a game a couple years ago when Richmond was just absolutely dreadful and they played
Yep.
Sydney, and I tipped Richmond to beat Sydney that week,
Yep.
and
You did. I
and
remember
I
that.
was shocked about that. But I just for some reason I think Essendon is going to find a way to get a win against this side. Um, I'm probably going to be wrong on this one. And let's be honest, it's just all about making sure that Mick wins our little competition that we have.
I won't tell him that for sure on that one. So, and then the coup de grace off to stadium, a fantastic one as Fremantle hosts the Gold Coast Suns. The Whinger in chief that is Dimmock has to take his sons out west. I think the Dockers greet them rudely as the
Hmm.
Dockers get a win on this one. Give me the Dockers in this one. I don't like the mojo of the Suns, and some more whinging, I think, from Queensland will be absolutely fantastic.
I really would have liked to have seen this as the Friday night game. You know, because I think Fremantle, because I think not enough Melbourne-based fans of the game have watched Fremantle play other clubs. Maybe they've seen them play their own club, but I think this being on Friday night would have been a really good thing
Hmm.
for the rest of the league to show. I'm going with Fremantle also to show just how good this club actually is. Because I mean, theoretically, I mean, they were just a couple of points off from from beating the Cats back in round one.
Hmm.
Um, because the Cats got obliterated by the Suns in that round zero, and then came back and beat Fremantle, I think by either 6 or 1. It was less. It was a
Yep.
goal or less.
It was close.
Um,
Yep.
so Fremantle's like a goal away from having been undefeated this year. Being the
Hmm.
Miami Dolphins from 1973. Um, to use an analogy from a long time. You weren't even alive in '73, were you?
Nope. A little early for me.
I was 10 at that time, which is why we had to have that little note pop up on the screen about a half an hour ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Yeah, so I'm
and
going
that,
with Fremantle on this one. Yep.
yeah, tipping the Dockers for me and the Western Bulldogs, Cats, the Saint Kill the Saints, and Melbourne Demons all get to kick their feet up. This is the last of the buys. Thank you. Thank you. Finally, these buys are over. That is it, Craig. Again, another fantastic conversation as per
Yeah.
usual with you. But I will not go away without letting you talk about, again, for those that listen to my podcast that do know about Craig, the Yank on the Footy, another fantastic footy pod. Tell us just a bit about the podcast really quickly, how to get a hold of it for those that listen to mine that would love to
Okay.
hear
Okay.
you talk about footy.
Okay. First of all, I think St. Kilda's going to lose the bye week this week. Um, uh, but yeah, you can find it at a yankonthefooty.com. It's on all, the podcast goes out onto all the different podcast networks. I do get almost all of the episodes now up on YouTube, usually a day later than the audio version. Because I have to do a lot of editing because if you're watching us on video, which is I know where Donnie puts it on YouTube, this is what I have to work with. Okay. So I I have to I have to figure out how to make those filters work, so I can be an influencer there. No, but it's I have a lot of fun with this. I've got a lot of interviews that I've done on there. I think I can safely say, Donnie is much more level-headed when it comes to things. I tend to go on tirades. There's a clip from earlier this year where I just in a short that I just if I run into Ross Lyon when I go to Australia next month, he's going to want to punch me in the face because if he's seen that video, he's going to remember me. And in fact, the first game I'm going to, I'll be sitting in the stands there, but unfortunately, I'm on the other side away from the interchange, so he won't be able to get over there to see me. But if some things happen that I think are going to happen, I might get the opportunity to ask him a question.
Yeah, that'd be
So
fantastic.
I would, I
I,
would,
I will pay. I would love to see that. No,
yeah,
I don't want
it's
to, I don't want to see Ross do that, but
something
one
along
of,
the lines of,
yeah.
I'm not a professional reporter, but
Oh no, I trust me. I go on some of my soapbox rants,
yeah,
especially when it comes to AFLW. I know some people have laughed about me because I can go off sometimes when I really, really want to. So
yeah,
no, just an incredible listen. I love the way some of his interviews are fantastic. I know Mick Ozzie is a mutual friend of ours that loves to
hmm,
talk footy and a very opinionated footy man, but I truly do love Mick to death. He's a fantastic
yes, yes,
guy with a great with his footy knowledge and so generous with his time when you do have him on there.
yep,
So it's
yep,
absolutely fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, if you like what you were listening to, please like and subscribe. Again, give some love to the Yank on the Footy. Again, one of my favorite guys to talk to when it comes to this amazing sport that is Aussie Rules football. And we will be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.